All right, welcome to the virtual brown bag. So, uh, just a reminder how this works. There are two links. There is a meeting link, which is available on our website, and a participant link, which you're welcome to use, but you do have to go into our Slack for it. Um, if you're in the meeting link, you can still interact via the Q&A section. If you're in the participant link, you can actually speak and use the chat. Just a reminder that everything we do here is streamed up on YouTube, so don't share anything that will get you in trouble at work. And with that, how's it going, JB? Hello? JB, you still there?
Yeah, sorry, I closed the door.
Yeah.
So I figure people don't want to hear my household doing its stuff.
Sure. How's it going, man?
Good, good. Yeah, so this week is the week of Space City JS. So
Yeah,
Matt,
promote that for a second, will you?
yeah, I'm terrible at promoting, but it is this week. It is a JavaScript centric conference in Houston. We have a single track. You can find out more at spacecityjs.com or spacecity.codes. We have a pre-party on Friday. It's gonna be at St. Arnold's like it was last year. It's gonna be awesome. And then a full day of JavaScript related talks. Um, and it's at the Texas Medical Center, like their startup space. It's pretty cool. It used to be an old Nabisco cookie factory that they gutted. It's a sweet spot, sweet space, and yeah. So this is the crunch week. So Matt, Alan, and me are like just doing the last minute, like lining everything up, dotting I's, crossing T's, and
Are
all
you
that
going to
jazz.
find us a TypeScript speaker there?
I can ask around. We do
Yeah.
not have a TypeScript talk.
I did ping TypeScript Lang on Twitter, so we'll see.
Yeah, I would like to see it. I was actually about to
Yeah.
set up a little TypeScript folder for me locally and just
I've been
download install it.
I've been asking around. I've only been able to dig up like a few people that do TypeScript that have done TypeScript professionally. One of them saying basically he would do it. I was just trying to figure out the limits of their recommendation, and it seems like at least like he was like no, use it I would use it anywhere if I had the choice, but I do think we can temper that a little bit, but anywhere given that you have a build pipeline that you're happy with, right?
Yeah, well, in the JavaScript world, that's
Yeah.
more and more common. I was just thinking, me is more of a byproduct of the interest that comes from using Visual Studio Code some more and enjoying that
Mhm.
aspect since most of the time I've been living in Ruby land but now we get into places where like with Elixir even too like Telesynth might be a good thing to bring back, a little cyclical nature. Go back to having where you know what the hell's going on, and it can do a little type checking for me. Um, but I think it appears interesting. TypeScript looks more interesting to me than Angular 2. Angular 2 was like I felt was a little too heavy on it. Like
A little
uh,
too angular. That's what,
I sort of want to sprinkle in some stuff. Like I don't want to go full blown um, enterprise typing everything, but
right. So it does sound like we'll track down someone who will
yeah.
be able to talk about that. In the meantime, uh, anyone on here have any? Well, I mean, I have some stuff I can show. First of all, I'll start with this, and then if anyone else, I don't know if I have a full hour's worth of stuff to show, but we can certainly prattle on. This is a neat article I ran across, so especially as an Elixir guy, but kind of interesting. It's about him talking through implementing supervisor trees for Go,
Okay.
but it also has a pretty awesome just description of supervisor trees for an Erlang. And it does all of that without mentioning Elixir even once, which I also appreciate.
Unpossible.
But it is. So I've been really, I really enjoyed this because I kind of had a vague idea of how I like how the supervisor tree stuff works. And it's a fairly succinct, this is what it does. And it's like, okay, I get to see kind of my misconceptions and what I had assumed and so on. So it's pretty cool, and it's from someone actually that's writing in the trenches on it. So jfjerf.org, Erie Post 2930. I actually don't know if this is his latest post or not. Let me take a look. It is not at all. Another thing that I found out this week that I'll put out there is screw Samsung.
In general, just
Yeah. Okay. So this is, and it's actually something that's interesting to know. So I have a project in which the requirement is Chrome latest, and there's this particular project's going to be run on a Samsung Galaxy Tab 4 device, so it's something that they're going to be distributing, but the requirement is Chrome latest. We're just installing Chrome latest on there. So I write a bunch of code using like ES6 because Chrome latest is at this point 50, and it's got all the stuff in it. We deploy, and none of it works on their tabs. And they're like going, no, we're updated all the way. We're doing Chrome latest. So we start looking into it. It does in the Play Store show it's on latest, but if you go into the actual settings about Chrome in Chrome, you see it's on version 43, which is well over a year old. There is no way to update past that. It's not something that's even this limitation. This limitation isn't even something that's like a thing that you can do in Android. Like all the Android people I've talked to are like, yeah, I don't know how you do that. So basically, it seems like Samsung hacked together their Android operating system specifically to limit Chrome from updating until they wanted to. And they haven't wanted to in over a year, but of course people would complain about that, so they just make it look like it's updated all the way. So which is horrible for the internet, right? Because now, like, you think, yeah, Chrome's latest everywhere, where I'm going to write stuff for that, except no, and Samsung didn't announce this or anything, so no, there's these like weird old versions of floating around, which like if someone's on that particular device that you didn't think to test against, and there's no announcement about what version they're supporting, it's not going to work.
and just sort of just like a responsive web page JavaScript not gonna work, or are you actually doing like a hybrid app?
No, well, this was just a web page.
Yeah, so just web page.
Yeah. Like nothing that's been implemented in the last year and a half will work on there. And the other interesting thing on there, so we're just trying to like go through the application manager and uninstall updates and get it to install through there. You can't, and because you can on almost all apps, you can go in and uninstall updates, and even on core system apps, which Chrome is here, you can't do it for it. So they've really hacked something crazy together to do that. So screw Samsung is my word of the day.
I wonder if it's malicious in terms of like it's an engineer who's just like who hates that stuff, or is it just bureaucratic?
I have no idea. That's my PSA for the day. Samsung is breaking the internet. We should be aware of it. Version 43. It's like back in March of 2015. It's crazy. And then, of course, I talked to I'm pulling in our Android, like different Android guys, and be like, "What is going on here? Is just my mental model of how the stuff works wrong?" And they're saying, "No, this should work." And we get down to it, like, yeah, Samsung's been known to do stuff like that in the past. Like, oh my God, really? So yeah. All right, I did. So the other thing that I did want to talk about that was broader is I've been working on a few, I think, months ago. I showed kind of GymGen and how I was working with it, and so I've been playing around with that a lot more. I did a presentation recently at a local functional development group on it. I think I'm really getting close to 1.0 here. I've been really working through some of the patterns that it enables. And I do want to show that and kind of talk about that a little bit, because it gets pretty interesting. So I think when I showed it last time, kind of showed the notification system. So basically, we've got a notification system, pops up notifications, and after a while they start fading. But if you go and hover over one of them while it's fading, it pops back in. But if you don't get it in time, it pops out, and so on. So, and this is just to kind of jog people's memory, an implementation of that using GemGen. So again, in within GemGen, you basically create a generator, and whenever you yield this concept of a signal from inside the generator, every time a signal is basically a promise factory. It's something with a create promise function. So basically, when you to yield a signal means resume next time the promise created by this function is resume once the promise created by this function is resolved. So when I'm yielding the signal like mouse moved, it will resume next time the mouse is moved over whatever element it's firing up. So in this case, the what we build up is when we call this function, we basically go ahead and say, okay, here's a do loop, which is fun that I get to use a do loop. And make sure that that nothing is hidden, right? Our list item. So we call show notification basically each time we want to show a notification. So we're passing a message, creating a list item for it. We make sure it's not hidden. Then basically wait for either a interaction signal where the interaction is either a mouse move or a mouse over, or a timeout of 3 seconds, and just as long as it's not a timeout of 3 seconds, keep waiting. Then and every single time, by the way. So since we're yielding the time of 3 seconds, basically what the effect of that is that it resets the timeout of 3 seconds every single time you interact with it. Once that ends, you go ahead and hide the element, and then again, and as long as the next thing that happens is not a timeout of 2 seconds loop, and if it's timeout for 2 seconds, then remove it. So that's kind of interesting and fun. I implemented a bunch more stuff, which some interesting things fall out of it. So first of all, I don't think last time I showed this drag and drop implementation. So drag and drop is notoriously annoying to implement. So here's an example of it implemented with GemGen, and it's very simple. Basically, you're saying you have a mouse down, a mouse move, or a mouse up signal that we care about, and then wait for a mouse down, which means that we're becoming draggable, at which point we're going to position absolute, though really fixed would be the right thing here probably. Then we're going to basically, as long as a mouse up signal is not triggered, so between a mouse move and a mouse up, those are what we care about, and as long as it's a mouse moved, we're going to adjust the style, the positioning, and what it's looping every single time. So once it gets a mouse up, it's going to go ahead and be in a drop position, and now we're back to the beginning and waiting for a mouse down on the element again. So this is, I mean, I thought it was really cool that it can be implemented in this simple way. And I think it highlights, again, just kind of the power of thinking in that way, because drag and drop is really annoying to implement.
Right, so let me follow, say, if I was modifying this code,
Yeah.
I don't use a lot of generators and yields, so I could be doing this wrong stuff. But I'd be tempted to take the yield any signal, I'd move it up and store that value in a variable, and then would I do if, or like?
You mean just this?
Yeah, because I want to be like, what if on mouse up instead? Like, I want to do something. You've dropped it. Now it needs to.
You would want to. You can't move that up here because it has to yield on each loop around.
Yeah.
So you could put one up here and then one at the bottom of the while loop. But it has to be inside of there, or you could make this while should continue, right?
Yeah.
And then inside of the while loop should continue equals this, which is what a while loop is. And I just kind of, this is just an interesting pattern that's fallen out of it, where I'm doing this kind of pattern again and again. I think once you use GemGen, it becomes natural. But yeah, I agree. That's a should continue flag, basically.
Right. So if I wanted to do something on the mouse up, would I do it after that while loop?
Exactly. That's when it prints done-ish.
Done-ish, I could have made an API call and say.
Yeah. And then it's looping back around, and doing and now it's waiting on a mouse down again.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So there's a more complex version of that. I want to show another thing which kind of highlights a different aspect of this. So this is a very simple implementation of a Pong game, right? So we can move our paddles around. Uh, oh, I can't believe I missed that. Oh my God. But I assure you, it will bounce. There we go. There's a better angle.
let's watch George fail at Pong.
Right. Well, the difficult part is you have to play it with two hands. Ah. Okay. So I want to talk through it a little bit, how it works, because essentially what I've implemented, what I found out when I've done this is the concept of coroutines, but implemented in JavaScript. That's what it enables. Um, so there are several different coroutines running here. So the concept of a coroutine is basically here's a block of code that's going to kind of run independently, and then and basically can yield out of it. So it's a little bit like setting up a separate thread or process, but it's not actually tied to that. It's tied to, similar to what we're doing here, events that are and it just has multiple entry points that are being called into. So let me show. So here we have a bunch of blah 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 helper code around just intersections and so on, math stuff. So in my particular case, in this example, I wanted to use Virtual DOM. So Virtual DOM, if you never used it, is actually like the core part of React. And it looks like this. So I'm going to have a render function, and here I'm defining what happens. This is actually, technically, this is a syntax called HyperScript, which is now native to Virtual DOM, but it does exactly what you think it does. It's creating a div with a board class on it, and the contents for it are two divs, one with a paddle and left class, another with paddle and right class, and another with a ball class on it, and the style is set directly on them is this. So right here, I have a state object that I'm just, this is basically my state object is where all my state is going to change. This is the initial state, and then every single time I'm going to pass it in here, and I'm taking that state. This is just object destruction, pick out left paddle, right paddle, ball stuff, so I don't have to do state dot every time, and then just applying like the top, left, width, height property into the style. So there is one coroutine that's specific to rendering. Here it is. So it's render game board, and basically what we're doing, whatever, this is Virtual DOM stuff, right? But the thing to notice is that we're calling render, that render passing the state, that's going to give us a Virtual DOM of just a representation of this DOM. Does anyone need me to cover what Virtual DOM actually is at any further length? Or what I mean by that, I don't know if I need to, or if we're good. We've talked about React multiple times.
Yeah, we've talked about it, but we haven't really done anything. That'd be kind of fun to do one day, just virtual.
Yeah, sure. I'll just do it this way. Yeah. All right, I'll show you guys exactly what it does. It's pretty darn simple. And actually, like I've said this before, like React is fine. I like React a lot. I don't think React itself is the biggest deal. I think the ideas of Virtual DOM inside of it are a bigger deal. And I don't think React will win or anything like that, but I do think the concept of Virtual DOM is very much here to stay. So I'm going to put a breakpoint there. That is not what I wanted. What the heck just happened? And what? All right. That's very strange. Yeah, there we go. Break where I want you to break. So basically we have our state, which is just the object, right, where everything's being adjusted as we interact with the page. Our render method is going to return new tree, and if you look at new tree, it's just an object. It's got a couple things on it, but it's got like children, and here's an object that basically describes each of our nodes. So here's one, and it's going to be my left paddle, and here's a style for it. So you can kind of see how this could be made into a DOM object. And that's what it is. It's just a descriptor of a DOM object. And then basically what happens is you call the patch method on that. And what that's going to do, I'll just call this manually. Well, what the patch method is going to do is generate, here are all the nodes that changed, right? Okay, that's what changed. The style for the ball is the only thing that changed at this point. And that diff can that diff can then be applied into a node, which just basically says flush it, actually do the DOM changes there. And that's really the core of Node. There is everything else in Node is just little bits of, I'm sorry, not Node. That's really the core of React. Everything else in React is just little bits of structure around that exact same concept. This is actually, they took React and just kind of extracted it into this. So, so what's happening here? Well, I'll come back to this in a second, but right here we have the actual coroutine that's happening. This is going to loop forever. It's going to wait for a tick. So up at the top, I have defined tick, which is just a timeout signal that happens 20 times a second, right? 50 milliseconds. So it's going to serve kind of as a game clock sort of thing. At the very least, it's what rendering is tied to. Now, I could just render right after every 20 milliseconds, but every 50 milliseconds, but just because the clock has ticked doesn't mean that the domain is ready to render. So it's a good idea to request animation frame, I think. I actually don't know a ton about this, but I'm pretty sure that that's a good idea. And basically request animation frame, what it says is it tells the GPU, let me know when you're ready to do more drawing. So two things, 50 milliseconds, and wait for it to do more drawing. Here now, request animation frame is not a signal that exists inside of GymGen. So I did this actually specifically as an example of showing how to create one. So basically, you're creating a signal factory, and what you need is just a method that returns a promise. In our case, you're just going to new up a promise and resolve it when the Windows request animation frame callback is called. And in our case, so this would actually create a signal factory. So it would be a method that you would call in order to get that signal. So we just call it one more time in order to unwrap that thunk and get the signal that's inside of it. So here's one coroutine running entirely independently. We don't have to think about it at any other points in the application. And it's tied to ticks, and it's tied to request animation frame. And JB, are you keeping an eye on the Q&A? Just so.
No, but I can.
Okay. Yeah, then we have the concept of paddle control. So paddle control is kind of interesting. Right, so it redraws. So if you've done key binding in the DOM before, it's actually not as straightforward as saying, okay, just listen to the Q and the P one. So you can listen to them. DOM events do report that. But DOM event, so if I hold down the P key, it will keep telling me P keys down, P keys down, P keys down. What it doesn't tell me is all the keys that are down. It only tells you the most recently pressed down key. And that could be problematic, because basically what happens then is if you want to know if the P and the Q key is down, right? You have to say, okay, listen for the P key down, then listen for Q key down that precedes a P key up event. Or vice versa, listen for a Q key down and listen for a P key down that precedes a Q key up event. So it's actually a total pain in the ass, and you have to aggregate stuff. You have to aggregate all the keys that are held down yourself manually. So in my case, actually, that's something that GymGen is great at handling. So we have a key down event that we're going to listen to and a key up event. Both all those are on the document. Then we're just going to say the concept of an interaction. We're just going to loop at this. So this, I probably should have done this as a while true, to be honest. Um, Basically, we're saying an interaction is going to be anything that's a key down or a key up, and just kind of keep listening for an interaction. And then whatever the key code of that last interaction is, if it was a key down, set it to true. Um, so putting that in other words, every single time you receive a key down or a key up event, you're going to modify a currently pressed object. The key that you're going to modify is going to be the code of that, the key code. That's something that's provided by just the DOM. And then the value that you're going to set it is going to be true if it was a key down, false if it was a key up. And then what we're turning that into is a keys down signal. So control signal is a new type of signal I had to introduce. This is basically a way of aggregating that into a new signal, and that signal will emit on any interaction, a key down or a key up, and the value that it's going to emit is an object with true for all the keys that are currently pressed. So it's going to, for example, be emitting. Let's go ahead and put a breakpoint right there. I can go ahead and get it to trigger by pressing a key. And if I go in here and just view keys pressed, you can see these are the keys that have been pressed. I had pressed tab at one point, but I don't have it down anymore, so it's a false. But I did press key Q, and that is true. So it's just a very simple way of doing that aggregation. So now that we have that object, implementing the move paddle is very simple. So we create a coroutine, or this is actually going to be a coroutine generator, right? So it's going to create a function that when you start it will start the coroutine. And inside of there, we're just waiting for a key down. If the thing that happened was whatever the up key code is, if that is pressed, then we're going to move it up. If the down key code was pressed, we're going to move it down, and then we're just going to make sure we don't exceed the container height and width and 0. And then we just go ahead and get that running, start that on the left paddle and start one of those on the right paddle, and then just going to sit there and wait for that. And that's how come I can come up here and press and control both paddles at the same time, which is actually a total pain to do otherwise. So again, it's coordination of events, which gets really neat. And then the actual ball moving gets its own coroutine too. So the ball moving is pretty much tied to a tick. So there's nothing too interesting there. It's a tick and then a bunch of just mathy stuff. The thing that is interesting now.
Just all games can be described.
Yeah, whatever, math, intersections, rectangle. Yeah. The thing that is, I think, interesting here is, so let's say the ball does intersect the left paddle. That means the ball has to bounce. Actually, hold on, that's not a good example because in that case it just bounces. No, let's say that the ball actually, well, this one right here, this is a better example. So you've missed the ball and it's gone off the screen. So basically, wait, what? That should be, oh, yeah. So the right of the ball is more than negative 100 pixels to off the screen, or the left of the ball is more than 100 pixels off to the left. So if the ball is mixed, again, that kind of needs to set off a different state machine. And that's what this actually does by calling yield star on that. So it just says, here's another generator, start returning from that generator. Well, now from there, we can go ahead and do time. I say, all right, we're going to add a shot scored. Then we're going to wait for 2 seconds, We're going to remove it. We're going to do some stuff. And we could do all sorts of things on there, but that all happens. And basically, while that is happening, in effect, the rest of this is paused because it's just basically yielding those signals, and none of it is resuming until that starts happening. So that's kind of an interesting way of doing state machines. I'm going to get into that a lot more in a second. Anybody have questions on this? This is complex, but I really recommend going and looking at it because it's cool stuff. Like really falls out of this once you start pushing it.
Well, a lot of stuff seems very similar to the general flow, like what Andy was sharing with Cycle.js, right? Like, there's similarities with some stuff. Or?
Cycle.js, yeah. So Cycle has, the virtual DOM stuff definitely.
Right.
The concept of coroutines. There is a library to do coroutines. And actually they do it in a similar way to do it. JSCSB. I haven't actually used it professionally, but it looks very nice. It is, however, influenced by Go, which is the big thing. Oh, heck, they implemented ping pong too. So Go is big on coroutines, great. But Go is also big on channels and the concept of channels and what that means, which is a great concept. But this library leans a lot more on that. Whereas my thing is just like, okay, it just makes you a coroutine. Here's a block of code that you can start running independently. It's not like a set timeout or anything like that. It's perfectly safe from a performance standpoint, but it is conceptually an independent unit of code that's running, which I think is a really, really powerful way of thinking. So that's kind of the point of this example, is to really demonstrate how using the coroutines aspect. So after I did the talk at the functional user group, they said, okay, drag and drop is cool. What would be really cool is targeting something with a drag and drop. That's like an extra layer of complexity. So I want to talk through that a little bit more. So here we have a square. And if I hover over something, both the square triggers something, turns orange, the thing starts wobbling. If I go over that green and go over both of them, go back, and if I go over something, I drop into it, the square enters yet another state, and you get the nice border, and I can go ahead and move it away. But the thing I dropped it on is now locked into that state because it's selected, right? So the interesting thing here is that we still have the concept of coroutines, but we also have two state machines going on, is how I'm conceptualizing it. So there's a state machine for the square itself. Basically, it's in its idle state. I'm dragging it. Now it's in its dragging state. It's being dragged over something. Now it's in the drag over state. So it turns orange, and then I drop it, and it's in its dropped state. And each of those states has its own set of transitions. At the same time, the targets have their own states as well. So they're idle, or they're activated, or they're selected, right? And now there's no way back out of that selected state, but there is a way out of the other two states. So you have two different state machines that are kind of working the way of each other. So again, kind of working through that idea, this is what I ended up coming up with. So we have make draggable, which is just a regular function, and inside of it we launch two coroutines state machines. So we're going to call run GymGen. We're just going to start GymGen running on this generator, and this is going to be the state machine for the box. And these are the states. These are the states that I've documented in the transition. So no dragging can transition, dragging over, dragging, so on, dropped can transition to not dragging. And actually it will transition automatically. And after writing this and rewriting it 4 or 5 times, I realized each of the states in itself is simply a generator function. So when I say I'm starting it in the not dragging state, all right, here, whatever, fixing the position, not not actually bothering with it at all. So I am waiting for a mouse down, right? So I'm waiting for a mouse down to occur, and as long as we're above that yield, we're in the non-dragging state. Once we're below that yield, we're starting to transition to a new state. So grab that event and go ahead and move it so that it now corresponds to my mouse. This is just a hook I had to add. I'll go into that in a second. And now we actually do the transition. So if it's currently overlapping 1 or 0, you're going to transition into dragging over. Otherwise, you're going to transition to dragging. Again, yield star, what that means is, hey, that's a generator, just start yielding whatever that yields. If I'm transition to dragging, so I'm not over anything, basically go in here, and now we enter into our previous thing that we had looked at. We're going to yield for either mouse moved or a mouse up. If the thing that was a mouse up, so we're currently in a dragging state, then we received a mouse up, then we're going to transition to not dragging, right? I moved it for a while, and mouse up, it's not dragging. However, if it's not mouse up, then we're going to move it. And then if we overlap one of the targets, we're going to transition into the dragging over state. And the dragging over state is just this. Again, we've just entered the dragging over state right up until we hit the first yield. Then, again, we're concerned mouse move and mouse up, so similar type of thing. Now, if the event that we received is a mouse up, that means we dropped it. So here's how you transition the box itself, and then we move into the dropped state. Otherwise, if we are not overlapping with anything, then we're going to transition back to the dragging state. It makes this really nifty little state machine, and then once in the drop state, basically we add a class, and then we transition automatically into the not dragging state right away. So that controls this box. That controls this functionality that we see right here, where it's changing colors back, dropping, and it's one of the things where it's like I wrote it, and like a really large percentage of the time I write it, like it just works, and like this really seems like it's on the right track at that point. And then we have a state machine that launches for the actual things itself. Which is just each of the drop targets is going to start idle, so it's just going to be a state machine that starts at the idle state. Again, it's also waiting for mouse moved because it's going to listen to those same mouse moved events that the box itself is listening to. And basically, if it's overlapping, if the box is overlapping with this thing, it's going to transition itself to the targeted state. And then from there, again, we can transition into the idle state or the selected state, depending on whether a mouse up happened or not. And then, of course, once we're in the selected state, so this is actually something that's kind of interesting. Selected state is a terminal state. And if you actually think about what this does, if we actually ended the selected generator, we would then be here, and then we would be back in the while true, and we would basically back out a state. So ending a generator when you're using this way just basically says, okay, I'm done with this state, back out to whatever the last one was. We don't want that. We don't want to rename it we're renaming it forever, so I just created a signal called the never signal, and basically what it does is it creates a promise that never resolves. So basically, JimGen starts listening to a promise that never resolves, and it just stays in that state forever, which is just a pretty nifty way of doing these complex state machines that are doing this stuff. Anyone have any particular questions on this?
Your brain.
It's brain melty.
Do you like living in it?
This is something like I mean, like, this is something that I was like, "Ah, I really want to like see if it's possible. It seems in theory that it should be, and then like all these interests in the further I press with it, like the more these kind of interesting patterns start falling out of it. Like the only thing that I find, so one of the guys I know who does a lot of functional work, he said like, this kind of looks similar to some stuff scheme guys used to do back in the day. But like I haven't, yeah, I haven't seen a very close analog, honestly. And
Well, I
and
think it's
again,
sort of interesting because you see this common pattern appearing between
hmm
whether it's your Gym or like
hmm
reactive or whatever. There's other and then Cycle.js and this event streams idea. And then
yeah,
on the other side you have, which I don't know, there's some similarities, but I can't find the Venn diagram crossover or how they mesh together where you have the Redux and Flux sort of thing where um, you're listening, you have these actions and then they change the state and your view is based on the state. They feel like they could be two sides of the same coin, but like I can't see where they cross over because in another way they feel like they're completely different approaches. One is caring about events in terms of like it make events changing the state and then like little micro change the state, and the other one is like macro. This is the state, and this is what the view looks
yeah.
like.
Well, kind of. And I mean, to be honest, in the ping pong example, I just did have a state object actually that was similar enough to what Redux does. I just didn't have concrete, action objects, and then whatever the heck their reducer does, which is like nothing. But the thing that's, I don't know, like the thing that's interesting here, I do feel like there's an analog with Bacon and stuff like that. And I actually even say in here, like, it's kind of like Bacon JS in a lot of ways, but unlike Bacon JS, where, like, you know, an if or a looping back around, you have to, like, use their special constructs. You can use your own constructs here. You can use just basic JavaScript constructs. It kind of flattens that out somehow. I'm really not still not 100% sure on what it is that I'm doing here, but like it does seem to do that. It's kind of interesting. Um, and I mean the whole thing is like I think I mentioned it before. Like you look at it, it's freaking 150 lines of code with like probably 50 lines of documentation in there. Like so, it's like it should compress to like nearly nothing. Um, which is just a kind of neat little thing. I also, if you're interested in playing around with it, like completely revamped all the documentation on here too, so it kind of explains a lot of the stuff that's built into it better as well. Um, all right, that was what I want to talk about with this. If
I got something to share now.
what?
I've got something to share now
Oh, okay. You put
for
something
a
together to share
few
real quick.
tiny minutes.
Sure.
So I took a look at TypeScript as you're doing that. And so I was able to figure certain things out, mostly because I had already done the groundwork of what the hell Webpack is and how they get it to work. you know. And by say figure it out, I mean have multiple projects that I can just go over and copy and paste configurations from. So I set up a little config for TypeScript, and I have my little TypeScript loader. Yeah, see, real fancy. And I have my TypeScript file, and I'm just going through their basic documentation at the very, very beginning. And I did it, and I just thought it'd be cool just to walk through it again and just kind of get talking because I've never done any TypeScript. I've glanced at it. This is my first foray into it. And so they just have this little simple. Let me pull my terminal because I'm sure it's going to yell at me for different things. Okay. So the first thing they do is they let you pass. You can set what type it is. So we can say, hey, this is a type string. So if I pass in 5, oh, look at that. Hey, a number is not assignable to parameter type string. What? JavaScript. And so that it seems weird, but like it's kind of cool to have to be able to say, yeah, I expect a string, and if you pass something that's not a string, I'm going to punch you. Next part, which was cool, was that you can then, let's say it wasn't a string, let's say it was like an object, but you don't want to give it a specific type. You're just like, look, the thing needs to have these two properties. They have an interface, so you can make an interface called person. You just say, hey, they have this first name, and they're supposed to have a last name. And then you can say, this should be of type person, and you can then go here, and I have my intelligence and know, hey, this is a type person, should have a first name, and it should have a last name. And then it goes, look, it's still blowing up because it's saying, hey, string is not type person. But you don't need to make like a class and new a person up. It can just be a object with properties.
So how are you declaring that as a person?
It matches the properties.
Oh, it's just matching.
Yeah,
Huh.
I didn't know that you do that. I was like,
Wait a
oh,
second.
I was
What
like,
if they,
what?
what if the object is coming via JSON? It has no idea. It can do that if the object is declared right there in the same
Yeah.
file, but if it's not,
I'm sure you have to do something.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know these things, George.
Mm.
Maybe there's a way you can say, look, I know it's going to come this way. Or,
Wait. I think Gene, were you saying something?
Well, I was just asking, if you had additional attributes in user, would it still declare as a person based on just having a subset?
I would assume it's not, but try it.
there you go. The thing is just matching it has those properties.
Okay, it's got to be a one-to-one match.
Well, wait, but it is.
No, it's fine. It doesn't have to be one-to-one.
But if you put a property on person,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I don't know what middle name.
Way to creative.
Hey, it works though. Look, see, it's blowing the hell up,
Yeah.
and it tells you, hey, the argument of type blah. I'm saying,
Is
this property is missing.
Is VS Code natively supporting that now?
Yeah, I didn't have to install anything for VS Code.
Huh. You're not using the Vim bindings with VS Code, are you?
No.
Okay. Yeah. I want to see if they're there. When they're there, I want to look at VS Code.
They have a bunch of plugins, and I'm sure it keeps on growing better, but...
Yeah, they had some plugins, that's true. They work like crap, but they had them.
That's what I'm saying. TypeScript seems to be doing okay, though. The other, but that was, I mean, that's it. And I was going to show it today, but the stuff that here, I'll just pull over. Look, I'm not that cool. I just followed their thing. But the next thing I want to look at is the React stuff, because this is interesting to me. Being able to set an interface for the props, and then giving it that sort of type, and I want to see what other things pop up. That's why I was interested. I was like, well, if it's built into Visual Studio Code, and I'm already sort of defining these requirements of what I want my React components to have and what props should be there, it'd be kind of cool to see how that all goes together. And my other asterisk on there is I'm already in a complex build system anyway, and so it might be interesting, but right now I'm still of the opinion that I'll just ES6 this thing and Babelify it. But I like exploring new options, and it's an interesting approach. Having type checking inside JavaScripts is kind of cool. Yeah. So that's it. And so now we don't need a TypeScript person anymore because I just showed everything you need to know about him.
Right.
That's it. I can be a TypeScript MVP now. Be like, you should do all your stuff in TypeScript. Done.
Done. Support it. Well,
I'm joking.
I still am not into. Well, I'm not into coding React like that, but I also don't want to be coding in React at all. I want to be just using virtual DOMs. I mean, that's kind of what I did on my last React project. I just had all my own structures around everything. I was like, all right, well, this is the way we're doing it. All my structures are better than all their structures anyway.
Yeah. Let me actually load up.
Yeah.
I have a project. See if I can get this up over here. Oh, it's one of those veteran VB presenter. If you're searching for something, turn off your screen and find it, then turn it back on because you never know what you're going to discover along the way.
Jeez, JP, what happened?
No, you just know because like you never know. Like, oh, I didn't know my text editor was opening to my
Yeah.
Amazon keys. You know, like it's stuff like that. So let me share this now. I won't be able to share all of the functioning stuff, but I think it's the general idea. So actually have a Meteor app I'm working with some people on Tuesday evenings, and was just reading some stuff and going through it, and I've had several people mention this, that React is sort of becoming a bigger thing in that world, and I saw the direction that they're going with their, like, they're doing some new framework. I forgot the name of it, but the idea is taking the ideas of Meteor but making it more back-endy with in GraphQL-ish type stuff. So like basically, it sounds to me like a Fire-based Meteor / GraphQL thing that like you don't worry about that part and you can code your front end. And
Wait, what is that?
I forgot the name of it. What they're doing? It's like,
Wait,
you know,
who's doing it?
people do Meteor.
Oh.
Let me see if I can look it up. You're generally more tuned into this stuff than me, so I thought you would know.
I don't know. You said all the words that, well, you said all the words that made me think of Falcor, but Falcor is Netflix.
Yeah, this is
Which I
something else.
really want someone to present on Falcor, by the way.
We're into Meteor, but we're still stuck on the Blaze framework right now.
Right.
Yeah.
See, that's what I was trying out, but it feels like the message I'm getting from them is like React is the way they're going.
Yeah, we're at some point in the summer going to start updating the app to integrate React into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Blaze is like basically handlebars, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is a React app with it's Meteor with a React front end. And so it's basically a Redux app. Like everything else is normal Redux stuff that I use in other projects.
We're getting like a lot of echo. I think G might be coming from you, or
I'll
can you
pop
try
mine down.
muting? Yeah, can you try muting when you're not talking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everything else is like a normal Redux app. The only difference is, where did I do that? They had some plugins that integrate with it, but it kind of crap. And so I sort of had to do it myself once I understood how certain things go. Okay, here we go. So what we do is we set up our store like we normally do, but then we tack in our Meteor tracker autorunner, which I'm still learning how this stuff goes because I've just done little tiny Meteor apps. This is more complex. But this apparently will happen when we can listen to a bunch of collections and when they're loaded and changed, and I can plug into Redux by making it by having access to store and making these actions happen. So it allows from this, like besides here, everything else is just normal React Redux stuff. So I can do all my other normal things that I do in other projects. And all I need to do is, at this point right here, just listen to the collections I want to care about and plug them into my store. And when I say plug in store, really just plug in the actions and pass in the data. So I think that's freaking cool, and I'm very happy with the results because there's nothing wrong with Meteor and Blaze's ways of doing it. It was just, it's when working on several projects, having some sort of unification on how you're doing things helps, and the fact that so that when I'm doing this now Meteor app, I'm working on it, I'm using the same Redux workflow and cycles and stuff that I normally do. I haven't set up the test yet. I'm thinking I might do that today. I'm not sure, but that'd be even better too, because like if I can have my Mocha test that showed up last week and test this in the Meteor app, and all Meteor is really doing is plugging into this workflow, It's freaking cool. Oh, and I love Meteor commands. I call them commands. I don't know what else we have to call execute, and that's so I can still in my Redux. That's the other part. I then call out to Meteor inside there. So again, it's the same sort of deal that. It's just nice having that. And I thought it was really cool that I could just plug it in that way, and if it. But well, so anyway, that was pretty cool, and yeah, that's it. But I'm looking now for that Meteor thing. What the hell they called it? Oh.
Well, if you know anyone that does Falcor or has been looking at it a lot, I
know some people that Valcor.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to also, since you got to plug your thing, so I'm not actually an organizer of this, but Brian Joseph, who came here to talk about Elixir Script a little while ago, he's having a hackathon in New Orleans this weekend. It's the
Nice.
open source hackathon. It's going to be all of Saturday downtown. It's going to be fun. Well, so come back tomorrow and next week and show some of the stuff that got done there.
Hey, you think you think he'll come and show?
He'll come what?
You think he'll come up and show? I like Brian. That's fun.
Yeah. Well, he tends to have meetings around this time, basically, is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like work meetings, and this isn't exactly a work thing, so he can't get off. But I'll ping him about it. He's not actually participating in the hackathon, but I'm sure he'll be like off in the corner doing his own open source stuff.
Yeah, but still have him review it or going through. It'd be cool.
Exactly. Absolutely. All right. Well, we are just about in an hour. We can end 2 minutes early if we want.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so this is cool. Let's
All right.
yell at Claudio for not showing up.
I'll get Mark. He's gonna come soon too. Shows his hammer and stuff.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. He had an appointment today. He couldn't do.
Okay.
Couldn't do it. All right, guys.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Thank you very much. Bye.